Buenos dias.
Buenos dias, here we are again. The rain has stopped. That water you can hear is actually just a little waterfall from all the rain that does fall. We're still up here in the Monteverde forest. Literally means green mountain.
And it sure lives up to his name.
Yes, it's certainly green. Yeah, so what have we done? This morning we were woken up by what we thought were monkeys, but it turns out they were coyotes.
Yeah.
So you've got lots of different things around here.
All
As I said,
going on.
it's all going on. We've been warned about potentially having scorpions in the room. It isn't technically the season, but you never know. There's always a precaution to be taken. It's one of those places. So yeah, we're still up. We're right up in the Monteverde Cloud Forest. This is the Cloud Forest Lodge, one of the areas I spoke about yesterday in the Monteverde area, where the guy whose name was Mendenhall, the American who sort of rediscovered this place for the white man, I suppose, if you want to put it that way. And we went up this, after, we're trying to do this in a chronological order so we don't forget what we want to say. So after being woken up by the coyotes,
we had breakfast.
We had breakfast.
And we saw
Loads and loads of hummingbirds, because what they do is they put like bird tables out of fruit and stuff like that, as you do at home, to attract the animals and the birds. But here, literally outside the window,
sparrows.
No sparrows,
Just
but
hummingbirds.
loads and loads of hummingbirds of all different shapes and sizes. And also we got there just after apparently a toucan had crashed into the window.
Like you do.
And then sort of rather dazedly sort of was flying around and then disappeared. So then we went into the actual cloud forest itself.
A lot of walking today.
A fair bit of walking, yeah, but amazing. A completely different experience to anything I or you have done before.
Yeah,
because you are literally in primary forests. The forests here are a little bit different because of the volcanic soil. The trees and everything don't last as long, partly because they get blasted by volcanic eruptions potentially. They do have cars up here, by the way, but the roads are terrible. So the forests themselves only last. A lot of the trees are only like maybe a couple of hundred years old. Some of them are a bit older. But it's thick vegetation. I said literally you are up in the clouds. There's always moisture, but the moisture comes mainly from the humidity, because it's 100% humidity, and you're getting all this dripping on you all the time, and that's just the moisture. That isn't actually rain. We were going around and I was trying to think of examples, because Alan, our guide, was showing us all these things. Once again, you have to stay on the trail, because you know he's
don't know what you're going to stand on.
You never know what you're going to stand on, and everything you seem to see or is pointed out to you is venomous in one way or another.
Yes. Don't touch that.
I meant to mention,
Don't touch that plant.
Yes, we were allowed to pick up certain things, like a little millipede that we had, which was quite weird. I held it in my hand, and it's sort of like a wooden sort of skull of skin to it. So you are allowed to touch some things, but only under expert tuition. It's one of those places that you step off the trail and touch the wrong thing, that it could kill you. It sounds awful, really, doesn't it? It isn't quite as dangerous as we're making it out, but potentially it is.
It could
and there's that expectation. You're going through this forest and you just do not know what you're going to see next. You might see nothing. We didn't actually today see a great deal, did we?
But actually, the thrill of it was the forest itself.
Yeah.
I talked yesterday about the architecture of the plants, and they're all striving upwards for daylight. So the trees are incredibly tall, and hanging off them, as you can imagine, are all of the vines coming down.
Lichens, moss, everything. A lot of them are actually attacking the trees to an extent. There was what they call ficus or something, ficus, which actually wrap around the trees and sort of try and strangle them to an extent. So it's, you know, the dog eat dog world, or tree eat tree world, I suppose you could put it. But that was an amazing experience. I was trying to explain to Alan, our guide, who's brilliant. I mean, if you're a botanist, if you're into botany in any way, or ornithology, or anything to do with the natural world, this is the place to come, because, as I said, you do not know what you're going to see. There's that sense of expectation all the time. Your eyes are darting all over the place, looking for little frogs. Alan was trying to find tarantulas today, putting his torch into all these different nests, and we saw more soldier ants. I remember seeing something underneath a leaf and said, "Oh, look at this! Don't touch that!"
Don't touch it.
And I meant to mention actually that the little blue jean frog that we saw yesterday, the one that's the size of your thumbnail, that is actually potentially deadly to children. For an adult, it will give you, it's the skin because of the coating of the skin. But for children, it is potentially lethal, which is quite something to think about, actually. And I was thinking about the Eden Project and how they tried to recreate that sort of environment. And you've been to the Eden Project.
Yeah, I have been
so,
there.
I mean,
it was an interesting comparison, actually, because at Eden, of course, they're trying to give you the best of the experience. So effectively, it's a managed forest. And they're choosing the best specimens of these extraordinary plants. Of course, the cloud forests aren't really managed forests. There are trails running through them for people like us.
But that's it.
But other than that, it's complete natural. So it's incredibly dense. I say 100% humidity. Just such a privilege to see it.
Yeah, I thought it was one of those amazing experiences. I mean, we go on about it being extraordinary. Every day seems to be extraordinary in one way.
Which is so different, isn't
yeah,
it,
and then what we did in the same sort of area, we went on what they call a skywalk, which are these sort of hanging suspension bridges across the valleys. So you are right up at the level of the tops of the trees. You've got a couple of 100 feet below you, the drops. You weren't that keen on them. I thought it was brilliant. I loved it.
I've seen pictures of people doing it in Costa Rica, and it's one of those things you just have to do. I don't like heights very much, and they wobble a bit as well. So I had to sort of just brace myself. And about how long do you reckon they were? Some of them about.
Some of the bridges were a couple of 100 metres long.
Yeah. So they wobble around.
And they wobble and they bounce. So I mean, I'm not a great one for heights, but I loved it. I thought it was great. It's one of those experiences.
Sense of the depth of the valleys and the height of the trees, and to see all the leaves from a different perspective as well.
Yeah,
it was great. Wasn't
and then we went for lunch. In a typical little Costa Rican restaurant.
Tiny little place, family run.
Yeah.
Actually, it was my favourite meal.
Yeah. I mean, it's because it was real traditional food. I mean, it's very much rice and beans and that, but fresh fruit all over the place, fresh vegetable, plantain. Yeah, we had that sort of
fried bananas.
Yeah, and just the food is great. I mean, it's obviously very healthy. We're eating far too much of it. But one thing I wanted to mention before we stop actually is this place, the Cloud Forest Lodge that we're in. It shows the value of tourism in some ways, because this place actually supports 20 different families that work here in different, because I mean you've got the actual hotel, the lodges themselves, you've got the restaurant and the bar and everything like that. Just up there you've got canopy tours, you've got a zip wire that occasionally goes down. We're going to be doing that in a couple of days' time somewhere else. One of those other things you think, oh my God.
That seems a good idea at the time.
You've got to, so it shows you the value of tourism. We're sort of wondering, because tourism is fairly limited here, partly because of the inaccessibility of places like this. It is not easy to get here. The roads, as we said before, are pretty dreadful, especially with all the rain and everything. There's no way they can really improve them, and I hope they don't in a way. But it just shows you the value of the tourism. It's one of their biggest industries here, and the way they look after the country and the way they promote it, I think they're doing a pretty good job.
It's taken over, hasn't it? Coffee used to be where the money was, and actually when we arrived in San Jose, the nice architecture in San Jose was actually the homes of the coffee barons, if you like. But tourism, as in many places around the world, has now taken over as the main industry. But yeah, it would be a shame to see places like this overrun.
Yeah.
But it is pretty inaccessible.
Well, hopefully it never will be. And we're here for tonight in this cloud forest again. We know it's going to rain later.
Because it always does.
It always does. Hopefully we'll see some more hummingbirds and I don't know what that was. Hear some more coyotes. And then tomorrow we're off to the Pacific coast for somewhere else. And the adventure just keeps on giving. We'll speak to you again soon. Adios.
Adios.